Hi, I'm Morgan Killick. In this video, I'm going to talk about my role as a specialist advisor at the Sheffield Social Enterprise Growth Accelerator. As one of the founders of the Sheffield Social Enterprise Network, it's great to be part of this new program, and I very much look forward to working with you. In terms of my personal background, I've been involved in social enterprise for over 2 decades and a consultant for the last 12 years or so. I founded a very successful social enterprise here in Sheffield in 2002 and grew that business from nothing to one of the largest providers of its type in the country, growing turnover year on year, hiring lots of staff, winning awards, and bringing in social investment on the way. I left that business several years ago in the hands of a very capable management team, leaving me to free to work as a consultant and a mentor. Since then, I've helped dozens of social enterprises and third sector organizations get started or grow through a variety of support programs such as this one, as well as through some private engagements. To understand what I do at high level is pretty easy. With such a long history of experience and expertise in the sector, I'm a really good person to talk to about your own challenges or opportunities. The chances are I will have encountered something similar before, either through my own experience of running a social enterprise or as a consultant to other founders and directors. That puts me in a really good position to be a second pair of eyes on the topics of your concern. And clients often find I have exactly the kind of knowledge, ideas, or even hard skills they need to move forward. Being the leader of an organization can be quite isolating, and it can be difficult to get new things done when you're busy with the day-to-day. Sometimes clients look to me to propose solutions or get a task done. Sometimes they want me to advise or guide them, but others still just find it beneficial to discuss and air complex business issues with a critical friend who understands what they're talking about. I am open to all of these forms of working. Whilst I'm happy to work on almost any social enterprise growth issues, I do also have a few specialisms that I would like to talk about. So I'm going to do a short presentation on these and at the same time explain a little bit more about exactly what I offer. So here goes. The Social Enterprise Growth Accelerator is brought to you by Sheffield Social Enterprise Network, and I am Morgan Killick, one of the specialist advisors on the programme. In terms of the specialist skills I have, there's kind of 5 main headings, and I'm going to just talk through them briefly. So firstly, we have the revenue generation. So that's when a social enterprise is striving to increase or diversify the revenues that it brings into the organization, making more sales, in essence. Second one, growth strategy and planning. So if you're planning some kind of expansion of activities, entering new markets, for example, or planning to launch a new product or service, that's when you need a little bit of a thinking around how you're going to grow and exactly what you need to do to get there. And that's the sort of area that I come in on too. Of course, it's very difficult to grow without access to investment. And if you are thinking about bringing in social investment, which is a mix of grant and loan available from social investors, that's the sort of area that I might get involved in too, can help you refine what you're putting forward to investors and therefore increase your chances of getting that investment. Financial modeling is something that I do quite regularly. I am a bit of a spreadsheet Phil, so I am happy to get down and dirty with the numbers on a spreadsheet on your behalf. And lastly, legal structures and governance issues. I mean, I have been a board member of various organisations over the years, and I am quite familiar with social enterprise legal structures. Although I'm not a lawyer, this is an area that I do often get involved in and can advise on. As well as those 5, I do have substantial expertise in various other areas, and I'm reliant on the SEGA team to put you in touch with me if they think it's appropriate. Various sectors that I do have quite a lot of familiarity with. And I've just highlighted again the sort of top 5 here, but B2B services. So if you're selling services to other businesses or organizations, that's a very familiar business model to me, and it's something that I get involved with quite regularly. Retail and hospitality, fairly self-explanatory, but if you're running cafes, restaurants, bars, or whatever as part of your social enterprise, that's something that I have strong familiarity with. Social enterprises that either manage buildings or spaces, perhaps indoor, perhaps outdoor, to try and run them as a centre for something, or as a property in its own right that generates income. That is something that is I'm very experienced at, and have supported a number of well-known social enterprises over the years in that area. Anything to do with tech is my background. So any product or service that you're thinking of launching that is kind of a tech nature, that's something that I'm happy to get involved with. And similarly, the trading arms of charities. Again, this is a common theme in social enterprise, where a charity wants to do some trading and launches a social enterprise to support its social aims. Of course, many of the social enterprises I support don't fall into those categories, and a lot don't actually need sector specific knowledge in order to support them with some of those headline strategic issues. So although these are areas I'm well familiar with, you don't have to be in one of those areas to work with me. In terms of how I work then, so this is the way I like to do it. We get to know each other a little bit at first. Mainly it's about me getting to understand exactly what challenges you've got and what pertinent history and background there is. And then I get a sense of whether and how I can help you more specifically. I'm typically then going to put forward a format, a timescale, and a cost for the engagement. And I like to work in one of 2 ways, if possible. The first is what I would call mentoring, and the second would be a consultancy project. Sometimes there's a mix of the 2, but in the case of this program, I think it's likely the engagement is likely to fall into one or other category, and I'll explain those in a bit more detail very shortly. Just to point out that the costs involved in working with me are either fully or partly subsidized by the SEGA program, subject to eligibility. Let's have a little bit of a look at mentoring then. That's the kind of first of the 2 ways that I might get involved with your social enterprise. Mentoring involves a series of one-to-one private conversations with me on a topic that you choose. It's usually one-to-one, so with an individual rather than a group of people. If there's a group of people that need to be consulted, that would typically fall more into the consultancy sort of working format. In these mentoring meetings, which could be anywhere from an hour to 2 hours long, I prefer to pre-schedule those in the diary so that we know when we're going to be meeting, and both sides can set aside appropriate time. But I am kind of quite flexible on dates, so it would be between me and you to agree those dates together. Ideally, those mentoring sessions would be face-to-face, but I can do them virtually as well. I just find you don't quite build the same level of rapport and empathy when you're doing things virtually. So if possible, face-to-face. And it would need to be either at your premises or on neutral ground, such as a cafe or a hired meeting room. I don't have an office of my own, so it's very much I come to you or we meet on shared territory. In terms of contact outside the mentoring arrangement, I can respond to brief emails outside the agreed hours, but what I'm reluctant to do, I suppose, is get involved in long email or telephone conversations that are not at the pre-agreed times. SEGA, the Social Enterprise Growth Accelerator, can fund about 8 hours of my time on a mentoring arrangement. So it could be a series of 8 one-hour sessions spread over quite a long period of time, or it could just be 3 or 4 more intensive engagements spread out over a shorter time or a long time. It's completely up to you and the nature of the challenge or issue we're talking about. Consultancy, on the other hand, is quite different. Whereas with mentoring, it's very much about supporting you with your challenge, advising and encouraging, and generally being a critical friend, a second pair of eyes on something. With consultancy, we are driving at a more specific goal. So this would be typically 1 to 4 days work, with SEGA funding a maximum of 1 day. And with consultancy, it's kind of more hands-on. So I'm really getting involved in the detail. I am actually doing something for you rather than supporting you. It's typically more structured work, and it's going to end with a clear outcome, such as a series of recommendations, perhaps a document of some kind, presentation, or if you're using me for cash flow forecasting of some kind, it might end with a spreadsheet. This kind of work, typically I do quite a bit of it at home, in my home office, but I can work on site if needs be, and in some cases that's essential, or a combination of both. A few examples of these are examples of 1-day projects that could get potentially fully funded, but proposing a technology solution. So in this case, I might come on site, observe certain problems that you have, and suggest some technology platforms that might improve that situation, or if you are aware of 2 or 3 solutions that might work for you, I'd help you get that down to a single one that is what you're going to move forward with. Creating a cash flow forecast can be done in 1 day if it's relatively straightforward. If you've got a very complex business model, then obviously that might not be done in 1 day. But for smaller businesses, or with businesses with only a couple of income streams, forecasting cash flow, helping you get to grips with your business model in terms of the financials, is something that can often be done in a day. A really in-depth discussion on growth strategy could be something that happens in a single day as well, or perhaps 2 half days. It's the other thing you could do with a consultancy project, split it into 2 half days. But that's where we really get into the detail on something. You might be required to prepare some stuff that we can look at together, or we might consult, for example, with 1 or 2 other people, or if there's a group working on it, we can get together as a group and discuss things. That usually needs more time than you can do through one-to-one mentoring. So that would be a good short consultancy project. And then facilitating a workshop is another thing that might happen in a day, perhaps. I think I'd need a little bit of time to think about and plan it. But if it's something that can then be delivered on site within half day, then it splits nicely between half day prep and half day delivering the workshop as well. Now, I do get involved in a huge number of different projects, and some of them take longer than 1 day, of course, but that's just a flavour of what you might get from me in 1-day consultancy. So there we go. That's a bit about me, my specialisms, the sectors that I know quite well, and some of the 2 different ways that I work: one-to-one mentoring, so that's support for you as you go through something complex, and 1 day or more consultancy projects as well. To how do you get involved with me? Well, you go and sign up for the SEGA program. That's the Sheffield Social Enterprise Growth Accelerator. There's a link on this slide here, or you can call the Chamber of Commerce on the number shown to register for the program. So thanks very much for listening. Look forward to hearing from you, and see you later.